Welcome to Bet On It, the college edition. Conference championship weekend, boys and girls. I'm Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas, joined by Marco D'Angelo at Marco in Vegas. Gianni, the Greek gambler.
Putting in a bet as we speak.
Putting in bets right now.
You're going to get it, too. You guys are going to get it as my play.
I love it, I love it, I love it. Small card this week, but we've got some special guests in the studio. We got some really awesome games on the docket, so let's get this week started. We're going to look at the big prime time Saturday football games, ABC, 12:30 Eastern. That is the Big 12 Championship, Baylor versus Oklahoma. This one's going to be awesome. Oklahoma has gotten some love, it seems, now that the line has dropped. This one opened 10.5 downtown here in Vegas. I was shocked.
It wasn't there for long.
No, it wasn't. I got it in my pocket. I don't know that I love it, though. I did bet it solely based on the number because I knew we'd see Baylor money come in. It got down to 8.5. I know some other books in town opened this one at 7.5 and got some Oklahoma money. So, Marco, I'll start with you because VR doesn't have all of his bets in yet.
I'm good.
You look, Kelly, when you have a game like this, for me, the toughest games to handicap is when you get to a second meeting like this, and the first meeting had such an extreme result. It was virtually two different games. Baylor storms out to the 28-3 lead. They're undefeated at the time. They're playing at home. Biggest game for Baylor since all the problems they've had and everything else. And it looks like they're on their way.
They absolutely dominated the first half of that game.
And then 17 plays in the second half. That's all they ran.
5 minutes. They had the ball for 5 minutes. How is that even statistically possible? I don't know.
So the question is it in their heads the way they gave that game away, or are they going to come back here with fire in their eyes and say, hey,
we beat them before, we'll beat them again.
We can do it. But, let's give the coaching staff, they got right back up off the mat the very next week.
I said that they would, and then we thought they'd have a letdown maybe against KU.
Yeah, with this game on deck.
They sure didn't. They laid just an absolute.
They're playing well, but I'll tell you what, we go back to the Oklahoma side in that game. Remember, Lamb wasn't in that game for Oklahoma. He will be in this one, so a little bit of a difference there. And I just got to think right now, Oklahoma's got the confidence of what they're doing. And I just think if they get that early lead, if we start to get a continuation of the second half of that game and Oklahoma gets two quick scores.
We've basically seen that the last couple of weeks. Oklahoma, after gaining that confidence or whatever it was to get that win, absolutely laid the hammer the next two games.
They did. And last week even though it was a rivalry game, it was a rivalry game, but this was more important. We're talking the national championships on the line for both teams. Baylor needs a lot of help if they to get in. It's a long shot, but they still have an opportunity.
That's fair. I do think they have an opportunity, but I don't think they have as good of a chance as Oklahoma does. And I don't really think that's fair. They should have an equal opportunity. Whoever wins should probably be in, but I don't actually think either one is going to get in regardless of the result.
Yeah, if Utah wins, I think they deserve to be in.
Absolutely.
Oh, but it's going to depend what Georgia does. If you need Georgia to lose, you need Utah to lose, and obviously you need Baylor to beat Oklahoma. And then I think Baylor has a legitimate shot to make a case for it.
All right,
a lot of things have to happen.
What are you seeing on this game?
Sharp side, immediately bet the over.
Okay.
Over 62.5, over 63. Now, that could be a case of getting out ahead of the market. I expect the public to only come in one way on this side, and that's the over. So it could simply be a case of, again, getting a good number when the market opens up. But I like the Oklahoma side, and I can't disagree with that over move either. Listen, they were 10.5-point favorites on the road at Auburn. Granted, they didn't cover that game, but they got the win, and now we're getting them at a slightly better price. I think it's we've been talking about it all season. Is Oklahoma a hill you want to die on? They're not covering games, but they're winning games, and I think they're going to continue that. But I think they could cover this game. I haven't bet it. If I had to bet it, I'd look to the Oklahoma side and the over.
All right, VR, I'm going to kick it back to you. Fox, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Big Ten Championship game. Wisconsin, giant double-digit underdog to Ohio State. Are you stepping in front of that Ohio State freight train?
It's hard to do it. Let me see where I made my line there, right around 13 and 15.5 are two different numbers. So not much line value either way. I think they're pretty close. And as a bettor, sometimes you just have to face that reality that the line's accurate. If I place my bet, I don't have much line value, but I'm willing to lay 11 and 10 kind of on a coin flip. And if you want action, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to bet to actually make money, then you have to use that ability to pass a lot. And don't be afraid of it. I mean, that's one of our greatest assets as bettors, that we could sit back and choose where we want to place our money. Odds makers, they got to put a number out for every game. We don't have to bet it. So for me, I think this number is pretty much where it should be. I like the under. I think the total's getting a little bit out of hand. It's moved 5 or 6 points since the opener. I think eventually there's got to be value the other way.
That's really good advice, VR. I agree with you there. I agree with you actually on this entire card. I don't love anything.
Maybe it's for passing. And real quick, I'll always tell people, like, if you know you're just betting for action, honestly, and you're laying 11 to 10 on a coin flip, we know that the hold is 4.5%. Just go play a hand of blackjack. It's only 0.5%. Seriously, the hold is 10 times less, and you're going to find out whether you're a winner or a loser in about 30 seconds. You don't even have to sweat the other 3 hours. So for those next 3 hours, do something productive with your life. If you need the action, go get it over with in 30 seconds and bet with at least less house edge. Seriously, if you're going to bet to make money, you got to think of it that way.
All right, Marco, Big Ten championship game.
Most people want to enjoy
their
money.
They want
to enjoy their money for 3 hours.
You're a
Just
poker
send it to
player.
me then.
You want to enjoy your money for 19 hours. I can't sit at a poker table and handle that.
Because you can't.
I have no patience.
Absolutely. I would love to see you handcuffed to a poker table.
There's no way.
You look at this game and, Ohio State, every week we try to say, okay, is this the team that can step in front of them? We talked about the Penn State game. They showed up, they won the Penn State game. That game wasn't as close as the final score indicated. We talked about that. Then what do? They got Michigan come right back the next week with this on deck, and they knocked the snot out of Harbaugh again. Poor Michigan.
I mean, but Michigan hung in there for about 1.5 quarters.
Yeah. Kind of.
18 minutes or so.
Watching that game, were you ever? Yeah, they got the opening touchdown, Michigan did, and everybody's all excited, and then it was Michigan as usual.
I think Clemson's the only team that could beat Ohio State.
And I don't
even know if LSU can do it.
You go back to the first meeting, and you talk about a beatdown. I mean, it was 38-7. They held them to 100. Wisconsin only had 191 yards. You're talking about one of the best rushing teams in the country. They have that mammoth offensive line.
JT playing in that game, their running back. Did he play in the first?
Taylor in that game?
Yeah, Taylor.
Yes,
okay,
I believe he did.
Okay, I just was curious because I know he was hurt periodically throughout the year.
You look at this one here, and my concern with Wisconsin, and I used them last week. They came through for us. They got a benefit with the weather conditions there because it hurt Minnesota in their passing game with the winds and everything. But even so, if you look at the last 2 weeks, Purdue threw for 326 against them, and last week, Minnesota, with bad weather conditions, threw for 296. That's a concern. We know Ohio State's one of the most balanced teams in the country. You always hear me say the 200 club member. They run for over 200 yards. They pass for over 200 yards. That presents problems for defenses to stop. I think this is Ohio State again. I got Ohio State 41-20. I'll go ahead and lay that 16.5.
This feels like a very chalky weekend ahead. I hope not so much, but God, it sure looks like it. That is great stuff from these guys. As always, we're going to step out for a quick break. When we return, we're talking the big game breakdown. That's right, the one you guys want to talk about the most. I don't think it's the biggest game on the board, but these guys might disagree with me. Georgia versus LSU. Is LSU the real deal? Is Georgia going to get in the SEC championship game? I hope not. That being said, we'll get to that game up next.
Get $25 in wager bucks added to your account after your first purchase at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. This is just our way of saying thank you for joining the Wager Talk and Sports Memo family. Every Monday at wagertalk.com, all plays are just $9. This even includes top-rated 5% plays, which normally sell for $40. There's no better day to get winning picks than $9 Mondays at wagertalk.com and our sister site, sportsmemo.com.
Welcome back to Bet On. I totally butchered that last close. I meant Georgia getting into the college football playoff. Obviously, they're playing in the SEC championship game this weekend. Touchdown underdog to LSU. This is going to be really interesting. Marco, it matters so much more to Georgia than it does to LSU. This is the best defense I believe LSU's faced all year. I can make a case why I don't think Georgia should be in the college football playoff, but I'll just let you talk about the SEC championship game.
Well, this is the best game on the card this week.
Yeah.
I think this one, and honestly, the Friday night game.
I was going to say, I think Utah-Oregon's going to be a really great game.
We know the Pac-12 is like the redheaded stepchild, okay? And nobody, cares.
I think it's Matt Lindemann that has the Pac-12 is not a Power 5 school in his bio on Twitter, and every single time I see it, it cracks me up because I understand his point. He has he makes a good argument for it.
But honestly, this is the year that the Pac-12 deserves a team in. If it's definitely, obviously, if it's Utah, I think they deserve the place in the championship game because they are the real deal, offensively and defensively. You want to talk about a good defense, that's another story. It's Utah, in my opinion, is one of the best in the country. You look at this Georgia team, the problem's definitely not their defense. It's their offense. Are they going to be able to score enough points to stay with LSU? We look at this team and we look at what Georgia's done all throughout the season, and they contain everybody, but they don't score points. This is a team that's only scored over 27 points, I think once or twice all season. And you look at that, 27 or fewer points, 6 games. You look at last week, they get Georgia Tech. Just throw that game out. Georgia Tech was so outmanned in that game. They had no shot in there. And with that defense shutting them down, that they're coming off that impressive score, but the real team is LSU. They've done it all year. LSU's defense is good as well. The problem with LSU's defense is when you look at it and compare it to Georgia's, the difference is Georgia's in games where their defense has to play the full 4 quarters all the time because they're not getting out of the 20s. So they have to play defense. LSU's defense, their offense scores so many points that generally they're bringing in players in the second half, making substitutions, and they're going into prevent defenses in the late third, fourth quarter because they'll give up yards for clock time because they're ahead so much. I think LSU, you talked about most complete teams and everything else. I think LSU is legitimate national championship contender this year, and I think they get the job done against Georgia.
By far. The question, and I know the answer because everybody has the same answer, but I want to disagree. If Georgia wins, they're in.
Georgia wins, they're in. Absolutely.
I just can't buy it. I think
they're a double overtime loss away from being undefeated.
Get to South Carolina. I'm sorry, but Oklahoma's loss to K-State, Utah's loss to USC is not the same as the loss to South Carolina.
If you beat LSU, if you beat Auburn on the road, I mean, those are big wins.
I will agree that Oklahoma doesn't have any big wins besides Baylor.
Right.
I would say that.
And the knock when we talked about Baylor is their out-of-conference schedule is going to hurt them if it's down to them and whoever they're going to be compared to. Because their 3 out-of-conference games that they played at the beginning of the year were the little sisters of the poor, and it just doesn't help their resume.
Fair. All right, VR, what are you seeing from your guys?
I'm biased. I have a best bet for you on this game, so I'm going to save it for that segment.
I like that.
I already bet it, released it to subscribers, so it's it's a bet. It's not an opinion. With that said, I'll talk about the side here. I have a bias. I need Georgia. I have a future on Georgia. I got Georgia to make the playoffs as a future and Georgia to win the national championship as a future.
Wow.
I thought they were that team being overlooked coming into the season. Not that they were the best team in college football, but that they offered the best future odds. And again, my job's to place good bets, not to predict outcomes. Keep placing good bets. Long term, you'll turn a profit. I thought that was a good bet. Now they need to win this game for me to cash those tickets, or at least have a chance to cash one of them or 2 of them. With that said, I think Georgia is live here. Listen, I'm high on LSU, fan of that team. Not surprised at the season they've had. I know no one saw it coming into this year, but they're as loaded as they come. I think, though, that Georgia defense, man, I think they're going to give this LSU team problems. I think this is the best defense they have faced all season, and I think it's going to take them a little while to figure it out. And LSU's winning with offense, not with defense. And I think that's where you may see a problem. If Georgia gets ahead of LSU, I mean, they've played well as the hammer. How do you play if you're the nail? Can you still win a game? if you're not the hammer. And with Georgia, I'm not sure they're going to be the hammer.
Okay, so you mentioned you have a couple Georgia futures. Just because we have a little bit extra time, anybody that has
safe for Ralph.
Yes, we do. You're right. I always forget about poor Ralph. Never mind, guys. All right, great.
You were going to learn something about hedging. Now you got to wait.
I wanted to ask if you're going to hedge your futures at all.
I saw it was coming.
Marco's got to keep me in this because poor Ralph will run out of time otherwise. Great stuff, guys. Can't wait to watch this game. We're going to bring in our resident stat guy, Ralph Michaels, with this week's TNA. My man, Mr. Ralph Michaels, with the trends and angles. Let's do it. I know it's a smaller card this week, but I'm curious to see what you found out for us.
You know, there's a couple things. And the first two, I mean, there's not a lot to take out of it, but I just found it's interesting to share. So we have Memphis and Cincinnati who played last week, and they're playing again this week. So in the last 19 years, how many times have teams played back-to-back games?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, because obviously when the conferences do the schedules, they aren't necessarily planning on two teams meeting in the conference championship. 5 times?
It's been 3, and in the last 4 years only. So Pac-12 did it once. I think UAB did it last year. In fact, they played back-to-back.
Oh yes, I remember that.
The favorites the favorites went 2-1 straight up, but 0-3 ATS. So small sample size, but the dog has covered the first 3 times that's occurred. So is there something where playing them twice where you're familiar and the gap closes? You know, the funny thing about the Memphis game is the lines come down.
Well, that's
because
what
last
makes it
week
so
they had must win.
Yes.
You know, and this week it's win and you're in, regardless of who you are. All right, so now let's talk about same season revenge. Since 1998, there have been 49 times teams have played each other in the same season. They played each other in the regular season, then in the conference
finals.
finals.
a lot of conferences you do play each other depending on which division you're in.
Big 12 would happen every time.
Yeah.
You're right, and it's likely to happen because you have 2 crossover games or 3 crossover games. So the team that won the first game has gone 29-20 straight up in the second. So when people say it's hard to beat a team twice, it's not. Out of the 49 times, the team that's won the first game won the second 29 times.
How'd they do ATS?
How about 23-23-3?
Good grief.
I mean, that's pretty Mendoza line. But I had to give you something out of this.
That is really interesting, though.
If the favorite won the first game,
okay,
and they're a favorite in the second game.
So Oklahoma.
Like Memphis, like Oklahoma, like Ohio State, and like Boise. They're 19-2 straight up, 13-7-1 against the spread.
Now, I'm not rushing to lay giant money line chalk here with those 3, but that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some big favorites in that role in the last couple. So now I want to look at teams off back-to-back wins of 21 or more points. Back-to-back-to-back wins of 21 or more points, and you're favored by 20 or more.
Okay.
So you're worried about laying those big points.
So basically it's just Clemson.
It's Clemson. It's since 2009 from week 6 on. And why I looked at week 6 on was because you were into conference play. You could beat up some ugly foes early the first 3 games. So from week 6 on, if you've won back-to-back-to-back games by 21 or more points, and now you're a favorite of 20 or more, you have gone 79-30 against the spread, 72.5%.
That's kind of crazy. And honestly, who wants to really step in front of Clemson? Because is Virginia going to be able to score? What are they going to be able to do against this potent offense?
No, I will mention, that is Clemson, but for those guys that bet FCS, that's also James Madison in the playoffs against Monmouth.
James Madison. Look at you coming to
Madison's
FCS.
A solid team this year.
Absolutely.
I expect them to roll over Monmouth. So that system applies to Madison as well.
Well, yeah, because they have a nice bracket where the best team plays the worst team. So.
Well, yeah, it's one against, there's a bye week as well.
Okay.
Because you have the 12 teams, so you have the bye week and then the top. So when you're one of those top 4 seeds, not only are you playing your first game at home, you're playing against a team that just had to battle someone.
Great stuff, as always, from Ralph. If you guys want more stuff from Ralph, head over to Twitter @CalSportsLV. I'm going to make him better about answering all these questions that I keep getting added in on Twitter. We're going to take a quick break, but when we step out, it's time to walk the dogs. That's right. Barking Dogs is up next. I wonder if I can get Marco to bark for me again.
I'm Gianni the Greek Corrales. We're setting up our biggest college football season yet, coming off a 6-2 Friday, 7-3 Saturday. And this week, I'm going to unload a 5% play on Saturday's college football. So we're going to put a package up for $39. the entire Saturday college football card. Then I'll go ahead and toss it in for Sunday as well, because I'm dropping a 5%er there also. So Sunday's NFL card, entire card, $39. That's Saturday $39, Sunday $39, all access NFL, all access college football.
Want up-to-the-minute scores and odds direct from Las Vegas? Then check out our Wager Talk odds page. You'll get all the latest lines along with moves as they happen from all the biggest books in Las Vegas, including Westgate Superbook, Circa, Golden Nugget, Wynn, Stations, CG, and South Point, just to name a few. Best of all, it's absolutely free.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Time for one of my favorite portions of the show. Time to see which one of those underdogs are barking this week. I mentioned earlier in the show, it looks like an absolute chalk fest. And that either terrifies me or maybe it's a good thing that it looks that way because there's going to be lots of dogs barking. Marco, going to you first.
Yeah.
You going to bark one last time? It's like our last college football show.
It'll be a little dog for you. A little
Okay,
chippy
good.
dog.
You're the best.
Yeah, I know. You look at this one, Kelly, and you go back to the first meeting, and when we get to the championship games, a lot of times it's going to be a second meeting with these teams. So you go back and look at what happened in that first one, and anybody that looks at that first one's going to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, Boise State wins 59-37, 13-point favorite, easy win by 22, put up 59. How does Hawaii come back here and win in a rematch?"
In Boise.
In Boise. You look at it, so
That's always weird to me that we're the Mountain West. I mean,
Plays
there's a couple conferences.
probably here in Vegas, once we get the new stadium, hopefully, they're going to have it here more often. But I feel like it's just really unfair. It seems like it's in Boise more often than not.
Well, it is because Boise's been the best team in the conference every year, so they get the game there. But you look at it, and Boise wins by 22, laying 13, and here we are basically the same number again. What's up with that? Shouldn't there have been an adjustment? Well, for me, I dug deeper into the first meeting, and if you look at that, Hawaii moved the football. They had over 500 yards of offense in that first meeting, and that was with giving away 4 possessions. They had 4 turnovers in that game.
Yeah, that'll cause you to get beat up.
And still had 500 yards of offense. What would they have had if they would have kept their hands on the football for those 4 possessions? So with that said, in that game, they met back in October. They were playing their second straight road game, Hawaii was, and we know what it's not your normal travel spot, Hawaii coming to the island. So back-to-back games here on the islands, and when you look at that game, go back, that was their 3rd road game in 4 weeks. So everything was against them. The 4 turnovers, bad scheduling spot. Last week, full disclosure, I was all over Army against Hawaii last week because I thought it was an absolute horrible spot for Hawaii. They just come off that big win against San Diego State. They clinched their berth in the Mountain West championship game, and then they were playing a team that runs the option that you never see with this game on deck. For Hawaii to show up and play as well as they did last week, that shows me something with the coaching staff here to keep his team focused and to play like that. And he even commented, when they asked him about, was this, a flat spot? And he says, absolutely not. He had his team to play in a meaningless game, and I like to see that. I think the line here, the reputation of Boise State, the history of Boise State, but we've seen over the last couple of years they haven't had that dominant home field record.
Definitely don't have the home field record
that they had anymore. The Smurf turf is, not what it used to be. I'm going to go ahead and take Hawaii in this one.
This is a big number. All Boise State needs to do is win. But you think Hawaii has a shot to win this game on the mainland?
I'll sprinkle a very small amount because you're going to get a big number.
What
but
is a big number?
I'm here looking at it taking a spread here.
Okay.
I think this is one of the ones where it does look like a chalky weekend. This is one of the ones where I think this chalk looks a little too easy, and I'm not buying it.
Probably get 4-1.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Because this is a barking dog segment. I'm wondering if
around
it's
plus 400 on Hawaii.
Throw like a little half sprinkle, just like one.
Yeah, just
little
a
bit.
pinch.
Got it.
Just
a pinch.
We'll put a pinch. The spaghetti sauce. We just want a little pinch
of sugar.
Yeah.
God. All right, VR, you're up.
This is actually the what I was betting when we came on. This is going to be my barking dog, and the reason I was betting it is because the key number 7 popped up somewhere on screen, and I took it because it's 6.5 pretty much everywhere. I don't think the line's going to come into play, meaning that half point being the difference. But But again, anytime you could get the best of 3 or 7, you have to do it if that's the side you like. And that's what I did. And I'm with UL Lafayette here.
Man, VR, how hard did you guys hit that? I got a 6 right here.
against Appalachian State. Listen, line value is obvious. You're getting it here. I mean, just the fact we have a number to compare it to. These two teams played not 6-7 weeks ago. And the line was -2.5, UL Lafayette at home, which reflects on a neutral field. They're probably a pick 'em. With that said, now we see a huge adjustment. Is it warranted because Appalachian State beat them? I don't think so. We're told you shouldn't overreact over a 60-minute football game, that there's so much randomness involved. You shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction just because Team A beats Team B. So if that's the case, it's an obvious bet on UL Lafayette. And with Appalachian State having owned them of late, I think that's why we're getting this inflated price. I like Lafayette here at +7.
All right.
+6.5, 6. You probably
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
need
there's
it.
still
You won't need
plenty
it.
of 6.5s out there. I just happened to log into one and going, oh, wow. I wonder why that happened. All right, the dogs have been walked, so now it is time for the steam and the trap games of the week. VR, I'm going to kick it back to
All
you.
right.
Ready to hear which one of these championship games got absolutely pummeled and maybe hopefully still some value for the rest of us out there.
I'm going to get you in action early on this week's steam play, and that's because Oregon-Utah total came out way too high. Came out as high as 51. Now, granted, it's dropped to 46. We bet it even at 48.5 and 48 and 47.5, believe it or not. Now, 46, I think what the key is to sit back and wait a little bit because I think this line's going to climb back up. Obviously, there's weather concerns, and that's going to force an adjustment. But when it comes off a key number and you're coming through that 51, through that 50, and it gets down to as low as 46, rest assured, whoever's got those groups that got under 51 in their pocket will be going over 46 as well come game day. And I think that's why you'll see this total creep back up and you'll get a better number. But this is going to be a very low scoring game. You see, Oregon's been putting up points, but it's when they play the level of opposition. We saw over that one span where they were just shutting everybody down. They were putting up points, but when they've upped their level of opposition, it just hasn't been the same. And I think that Utah defense is going to show up. I like the under.
VR, just real quick because we have a little bit of time. Can you explain some of the key numbers in college football totals?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in the NFL, everyone says it's that 37 and 41 and 50, 51s, they're key. It changes. In college football, I really don't think there's a number where it's worth you buying a half a point. I just think the variance in scoring in college football compared to the NFL is the reason for that. I mean, these guys miss extra points, for God's sakes.
They miss them in the NFL.
Now they do that. They moved it back to a field goal, but I mean, these kids are missing it from the 3-yard line.
No, this is also true.
That's why I don't think it's really like. But again, you want to try to get the best number, and I think at 46 you're not doing that. I think it will go back up, but I would honestly, I think the under is the way to go. I don't see these teams scoring over 35, 38 points.
All
I
right.
think it's going to be that low scoring.
Marco's Deli is closed for the season, I would say. There's
for college now.
Yeah, for college, because there's probably no more sandwich opportunities. But you have a trap game for us this week, which is really interesting.
We do have a trap game.
Because I'm looking at this whole slate going, what
Who's
the
setting?
hell am I
Yeah.
doing this week?
Well, you talked about the value, and it's going to be in the game that you already did, Ace, with your barking dog. And we're going to go to Louisiana Lafayette at Appalachian State. This is a spot where you said from the first game that there's value with Louisiana Lafayette. I agree with you. From the math standpoint, there is. But I'm going to have you look at this game like John Q. Public is going to look at this game. And what John Q. Public sees is App State went on the road to Lafayette and beat them by 10. Held them to 7 points. It was a 17-7 game. Dominated the game for them, and now they're looking at App State, who is in the top 25. Okay? Now we have a top 25 team that already won on the road and now has this game. This is one of the conferences where the team with the better record gets the home field. So we've got a top 25 team playing an unranked team, and the line's under a touchdown.
And now we're seeing reverse line movement.
Okay?
And give me 3 minutes, and I could name you 40 teams that would be favored over Appalachian State, who's
Easily.
ranked in the top 25.
But John Q. Public sees those rankings, and they love, I got a ranked
I mean, don't forget App State beat South Carolina.
Yeah. Oh, with South Carolina
beat Georgia.
Beat Georgia. So, I mean, App State should maybe, they should make a case to be in the playoffs.
Oh, no.
This is one of those ones where what people don't realize, Louisiana Lafayette has the number 5 offense at yards per play. 7.1 yards per play.
They're not going to be held to 7 points again.
Not this time, no. I am looking at this one. I love taking
call.
the underdog in here, and this is a spot where I'm all over it. Thanks for stealing that 1-7 that was out there. I didn't, but I think this is one of those. If the public, this is going to be where
you'll probably get it on Saturday.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's still plenty of 6.5s out there.
But I really do believe that Louisiana. I was back and forth for where I was going to use, but I needed a trap, and to me, this was the best trap. But this could have very easily been my barking dog.
Yeah.
But I think that they're getting more than a pinch on the sprinkle this week.
Yeah, I like it.
That.
All right.
And you wanted to ask Ace about. We ran out of time.
Oh yeah, we did run
time.
out of time for the hedging thing. When we were talking about. You got about a minute here. So, are you going to hedge your Georgia futures? Can you talk about hedge anybody and giving them advice to hedge any of their futures they may have going into championship weekend?
Personally, I only hedge if I think there's value on the other side. But I'll tell you, everybody's in a different financial situation, and when the money's significant and it matters, there's nothing wrong with giving up equity and hedging. I know that the pros are going to say you should never do that, but I live in the real world where it's not where everything goes according to plan. And in the real world, you got to do what's best for you. And sometimes being able to lock in a profit's not the wrong way to go. Personally, I don't do that. I've been betting long enough, where each week doesn't matter to where I have to win
I think
money.
I'm just so arrogant that I'm like, no, I have the right side anyway, so I just let it ride. It's terrible to say, and I used to joke and have a pretty obscene hashtag on Twitter back in the day because that's exactly how I felt about it. Like, no guts, no glory. But I do agree, not everybody lives in the same bubble.
Right.
And at some point in time, locking in a profit, especially
if it really matters and not everyone has the same bankroll, or, if it's going to also affect you mentally.
Or
like
if
you
Georgia
lose
fan
that and now
you're
crushed.
you want to emotionally hedge as well.
Everybody has and that's we got to wrap it up. But this is a good conversation for another day.
Absolutely. Great stuff, guys. We're going to step out for a quick break. When we return, it's time to go behind the counter with Dave Sherapan from CG Technology plus Best Bet Time.
This week only, take $100 off a 30-day all-access package from your favorite capper at wagertalk.com or sportsmemo.com. This will get you every play in all sports, including 5% plays that sell for $40 by themselves. And with a 30-day all-access package, you'll get all the big college bowl games. Hurry, as this offer ends Monday at midnight. Just use coupon code VIP249 to get 30 days for $249.
This Sunday, I'm making my biggest bet so far of the NFL season. I absolutely love the scheduling dynamic of this play, along with the number supporting this play. The line is sitting right where I want it, so all systems are go, and I have already released this play. And bet it, you can get this 5% play for Sunday. Normally sells for $40. But I'm going to give all my loyal followers a coupon code to get this game for half price. Just enter coupon code MD20 at checkout and you'll receive $20 off, making your final cost just $20 instead of the normal $40 price. Just go to wagertalk.com right now and get my 5% NFC major wager for Sunday.
Welcome back to Bet On It. This week we have a special guest in studio, Mr. Dave Sherapan. You can follow him on Sportsbook Consigliere, which is not really what your Twitter handle is. It's abbreviated. It's
right.
at SportsBK Consig. Dave is one of the best odd makers in town. He's over at CG Technology, and he is going to share some of his wisdom for us for the college championship weekend. Dave, let's start Pac-12 championship game. This is where one of my favorite spots is, but there's not a lot of value, in my personal opinion. You guys did a really good job on these numbers. I'm looking and going, I don't really love that much, but we will start off with the Pac-12 championship game. Looks like some money's coming on the under.
You're right. Thank you for the great intro and the flattering comment about the lines, because that's pretty much the story all week. I mean, Pac-12 in general, we opened at 4.5. Got some little plays early on Oregon. The money came in. We took a limit play at 6. So we're sitting 6.5. waiting for Oregon money to come. I don't know if it's going to show. I don't know. It seems like the
if it gets to 7, I feel like you may
time
see
to jump in, yeah.
But I do think you're right. If you guys know your position now, and you've taken a pretty heavy stance on Utah, then.
Yes, right now. But again, it's early in the week, and the early plays kind of give you a roadmap to get to the number. We may be at the number right now. I don't know if 7's going to show, but early indications are that it will.
Okay. Any opinion on the total?
It feels like an under game to me. I don't know. It just feels like this is going to be not a real great watch. So, yeah.
I can see what you mean. I think either Utah dominates defensively and it's a boring game, Utah covers, the under hits, or the flip side, Oregon comes out, shows out, plays that high-octane offense we've seen in the past from them, and then maybe Utah has to play catch-up.
Yes, and I think Oregon's defense is probably the most underestimated of the two here. Obviously, we know Utah's defense is very, very good, but I think Oregon can and will be a challenge for Utah's offense.
Okay, the MAC championship game, not a real big opinion here. Why? Because I don't follow the MAC. Miami, Ohio, Central Michigan, -6.5. If it's moved a little bit since I have these numbers, I apologize. Central Michigan, though, has been making their backers some money this year.
They have, and that's the way this thing's being bet. We put up 5.5 to open, immediately took a sharp play at 5.5, moved to 6.5, took another sharp play at 6.5. There is no interest at all on Miami of Ohio. So I'm with you, though. The MAC is its own league, its own creature, and people that follow it know. I would probably think that Central Michigan is going to get most of the money going into Saturday.
All right, the Sun Belt. This one's going to be super fun. The Fun Belt. You got to love this. Louisiana Lafayette versus App State. Is Louisiana Lafayette a live dog here?
No one thinks so, at least at this point. We don't have a single bet on Lafayette.
Wow.
At this point. And, we're taping this now, and so it will happen, but there's not going to be many backers. So App State, there's no real money on the game. It's the Sun Belt. You call it the Fun Belt. I don't know who it's fun for.
not for odds makers.
Right, not really. So we put up a number and see what happens. But, yeah, no real interest on this one.
Another game that has had just tremendous money coming on, Big 12 championship game, Baylor, Oklahoma. We saw this one open downtown at Baylor plus 10.5. I had a buddy immediately said, I got to get a 10.5. And I said, not so fast. I'm not sure. We've seen Oklahoma have moments of greatness, especially since that second half versus Baylor. I'm not sure that Oklahoma is going to blow Baylor off the field, and this is coming from an underdog backer.
I don't know. We opened this, and you saw this was the one game that you saw a lot of variance with opening numbers. We opened at 7.5.
Oh, wow.
And they laid it immediately, 7.5. And then,
do you think that was maybe because of a middle possibility from having a 10.5? Okay.
Yes. The game closed, 7 in Baylor a couple weeks ago. So putting up the same number for the numbers guys would indicate that it's probably
Dallas,
going to go up. It doesn't make sense. Well, that's what happened. But our odds makers and all of us when we sat in the room said Baylor gave them everything they had in that game and probably should have won. I mean, it took an unbelievable effort for Oklahoma to win that game in Baylor. Can they repeat that? I'm with you. I don't really see Oklahoma being that powerhouse. It's not that big of a difference, but bettors are indicating to us that it's going to continue to go up. So your 10.5 is great. That's a. I don't think it's going to reach 10 again, and if it does, it's going to flash and go away.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Conference USA championship game. UAB is a 7-point underdog to FAU. Good old Lane Kiffin. Is he going to come through for his backers?
I have no idea. This is a game. This is the MAC game, recreated. There is zero interest in this game. We've hung 7.5 and haven't moved it once.
Wow.
So when you see that, we call that a bad number because when you make a good number and there's no bets either way, you're like, all right, how do we generate action? So it's one of those that at least maybe it's getting overlooked on the card or just no one has an opinion.
Or I think no one has an opinion because I don't have a big opinion there. Neither do I. Don't really follow Conference USA that much either. And honestly, like I said, you guys did such a good job on some of these lines. Okay, let's move along real quick. AAC championship game, Cincinnati, Memphis. Memphis just played this team last week. 13-point favorites, did not cover. Now they're at not a neutral. They're at the Liberty Bowl, but they're still in Memphis. So it's tough to say neutral site per se. but 9.5 is really intriguing.
Sharp play came at 10.5 with us on the opener.
Okay.
And now it's been just small plays, but they're taking the dog. We're currently at 9 on the game, and it makes a lot of sense, numbers-wise, play-wise, to take the dog here, but it's going to continue to go down.
Okay, we're running out of time here,
All
so I'm
right.
going to skip Mountain West. SEC championship game. Does LSU just pound the absolute hell out of Georgia? I mean, I feel like they're going to be a monster play here, but Georgia's defense is really good.
It's the play so far of all the games.
Okay.
We opened at 3.5, which may have been a little light. Market told us real quick we may have been wrong because they laid 4.5, 4.5. We jumped to 6. They laid that, no hesitation, and got us to 7. So we're already, that's our heaviest game going into Saturday. We're going to need the Bulldogs big.
All right, Big Ten championship game. Wisconsin, just a massive underdog to Ohio State here. Can you step in front of the Ohio State freight train? I mean, I don't want to.
Nobody does. And we actually opened that a point higher to get some Wisconsin money because we know what's coming this
Correct.
weekend. So they grabbed 17 right out of the gate, and we're sitting at 16.5, and the liability is starting to build. We're going to need the Badgers. I'm not really great with that position, but that's where it's going to end up.
All right, last but not least, ACC championship game, Virginia, Clemson. Clemson doesn't have a lot to play for here. They're in no matter what, but are they going to be able to beat this team by essentially 30?
Do
they get a name to
Virginia
score?
Going to be able to score? That's the question. And that's when you make these numbers, you look at that. Virginia's not even going to score 10 points. I would be very surprised if they put up 10. So can Clemson mail it in and win 35-0 or
Sure.
38-3? Yes.
Okay.
So, and that's the way it's being bet.
All right, awesome stuff from Dave. Let's bring the boys back in. It's that time of the show you've all been waiting for. That's right, we're going to take a look at this week's best bets for college football. All right, it's best bet time. I was going to go first, but I'm going to save my best bet for last. Marco, you're up. See what you got for us for your best bet college football championship weekend. Not
Make
very
sure
many
it's a
games on the
winner.
slate.
I'm going to go to a game that was just played last week.
Oh,
Cincinnati, Memphis.
okay.
And, we saw them play last week. Memphis was closed anywhere from 13 and a half, even a couple road 14s.
I was so frustrated with Memphis last
I
week.
know.
Okay, but now we've got a big adjustment on the line. Why we have this adjustment this week? They only won by 10 last week, so we're going to move the number just on that. I think this was a spot. What was the advantage for Memphis to roll it up last week? Why, poke the bear?
Well, why show your entire card to a team you're going to play the next week? You're right.
Absolutely. I think Memphis and Cincinnati, you can't fault their season. I mean, going into last week, they had one loss. Oh, who was that loss to? The best team in the country,
Yeah.
Ohio State. So, nothing wrong with their resume, but this Memphis offense, how do you stop it? I know Cincinnati, it looks like they contained it last week, but as you said, and that's exactly how I feel, why put everything on the table last week for Memphis? Keep some stuff in your bag of tricks for this week. I love this team. I think that they can score points. I know Cincinnati had 3 turnovers last week, but I also know that if Memphis's offense is rolling like it does and they get a little bit of separation, that's going to force Cincinnati to have to open up their offense to try to trade points. And that's where teams get in trouble against Memphis because you fall behind. You might have a great game plan. You might want to try to run the football down Memphis's throats because they're not a great defensive team. But that's out the window when you're down 14 points. You've got to abandon your game plan and adjust, and that's where the turnovers come. I like this Memphis team. They're rolling. Prior to last week's game, Memphis has scored 42 or more points in 5 straight games.
I'm with you, Marco. I'm a little gun shy after last week, but that is the side I lean in this one. All right, VR, it is best bet time. You better have a winner for me this week.
I brought gifts this week, and win or lose, rest assured, I backed all 3 of these with my money. I backed the under in the Steam play on Friday night. I bet Louisiana Lafayette, as you know, during this episode. And I already released this. I gave it out early in the week as a 4%er, and I possibly upgrade to a 5. I really like this spot. LSU, Georgia. Let's go under that total of 55. Just way too high. And I'm not surprised. I mean, you look at an LSU offense that scores 50-plus points. And I hate to be cliche, but styles do make fights. And this will be a very different fight than what LSU has been used to this season. And I think that's exactly the kind of game Georgia wants to play. They want to just slug it out, play old-style SEC football, and see where where at the end of the game, who comes out ahead, maybe with a field goal, who knows. But I don't think this is going to be one of those games where it turns into a shootout. And I think that the fact that we saw Alabama and LSU just give us a shootout is why this line came out as high as it did. You know, that recency bias of seeing that Alabama, who is known as a defensive team, SEC, and they still put up almost 100 with LSU or so. That's why we're getting 55 here instead of 47, 48, 49. Let's go under this total as our best bet.
All right, I know I'm really late to the party on Friday night. Utah -6.5 is going to be my best bet. And this is more of a play on Utah's defense. Also, this is the first, well, technically second year they've had a really good offense. I don't think that it sounds funny. So I don't think that this team is getting enough appreciation. We joked about in a different segment about the Pac-12 not being a Power 5 school. I was listening to Feinbaum this morning on the radio. He doesn't even know who Utah's quarterback is because no one on the East Coast stays up long enough to watch these teams. This Utah team, I believe, should be the fourth team in the college football playoff, Georgia result or not. This Utah team has been awesome the last 8 games. They've covered 8 straight, and they have been absolutely rolling ever since basically the loss to USC, which I was on USC in that Friday night. I think they kind of get a pass here because that USC team is so talented. It is tough to go into the Coliseum under the Friday night lights and win, and they've become so much more well-rounded since that loss, however many weeks, 9 weeks ago. The Ducks, on the other hand, speaking of the game in common, will be USC because why? The Ducks just pummeled absolutely throttled this Trojans team and took advantage. This Utah team, though, I think will show up here in a big way because they aren't getting any respect. They aren't getting any love here. And frankly, I'm not sure what the Ducks have left to play for. Yes, you want to win a Pac-12 title game. Yes, you want to be able to beat Utah. It doesn't mean you're able to do so. This Ducks defense has given up a lot. This Ducks offense has just not been as potent as we once saw. I'm rocking with the Utes here. This may be a closer game than it appears on Friday night, but I am not stepping in front of this Utes freight train. It's Utah or nothing for me on Friday night. As VR mentioned, maybe look towards the under in this one. We're going to step out for a quick break, but when we return, it's going to be our final thoughts on this week's action. That's right, we're going to recap the entire card for all of you too lazy to watch the entire show. Did you know every Tuesday is $2 Tuesday at wagertalk.com? We pick the hottest handicapper and offer his best bet for just $2. This is a great way to introduce yourself to the winning handicappers at wagertalk and sportsmemo.com. All right, it's the final segment. It's time to recap this week's games. Let's start off with the first primetime game. Both guys like Oklahoma. We got a little discrepancy here on Wisconsin, Ohio State. Marco likes to lay all the chalk with the Buckeyes because why wouldn't you? I mean, you want to step in front of Ohio State? No, thank you. VR has got the under 56.5. As far as the Georgia LSU game, I thought we would all be in agreement on LSU, but VR's got some of those Georgia future tickets out there. He's laying
bias.
There you go. He admitted that. I like that. Marco's on LSU. I also agree with LSU here. VR says the under 55 is the play. Next up, we have Barking Dogs. Marco said Hawaii's worth a little baby sprinkle, but they will keep it within the 2 touchdowns. VR likes Louisiana, Lafayette plus 6.5. This one's hitting 6 in a lot of places too, so if you like it, now would be the time to get it. The steam game of the week, Oregon, Utah under 46.5. As VR alluded to, if you're sitting at 46, hang tight because this one's going to get bet back up between now and Friday. Marco agrees with VR on Louisiana Lafayette. That is his trap game of the week. Reverse line movement on App State. Don't buy the top 25 hype. Last but not least, we have the best bets. Marco going back to the well with Memphis. Like I said, I'm a little gun shy, but he's right. This line move of 4 points is absolutely crazy. VR says Georgia LSU under 55 is his best bet for this week. And I am a little late to the party, but I do like the Utes on Friday night. As always, I hope you guys really enjoyed the college conference championship weekend edition of Bet On It. We always enjoy doing this show. If you guys are not a subscriber to our Wager Talk YouTube channel, hit the subscribe and notification button so you will always be the first to know when next week's show is out. Be sure to share the show with your friends on social media. Don't forget to check out the NFL edition of Bet On It. As VR always says,
smash it. Smash that like button. It takes like 2 seconds to go click.
I
have to drive 30 minutes to get here, do this for 3 hours, and then drive 30 minutes home, and you're not even going to click for me.
As my buddy Nick says.
I'm not asking for much.
Yeah, he goes, don't be a freeloader. No,
That's all.
In all seriousness, guys, we always appreciate great reviews. Hit up the comment section. Let us know what you want to see on the show. We have lots of new stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks of Bet On It. We have tons of great free information, so please give us a nice review, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, share with all your friends, retweet, like the best that you can. And until next week's show, don't forget, let's bet on it.